Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. This video is going to cover, kind of summarize, go over a little bit my thoughts about the first two episodes of the new I Am the Night series. I'm going to go over the first two episodes, the pilot and the phenomenon of interference. It is, I think it's on FX or TNT, I'm not sure, but I'll put it in the description box down below. And I'm using my weekly makeup bag. So the eyeshadow that I'm using is from We Makeup, and I'll put a link in the description box down below to the weekly makeup bag, bi-weekly makeup bag that I'm using for this. And I definitely have some opinions about it. So if you'd like to know what I'm thinking about these first two episodes, and in the future, I'm hoping to do one for each. It's just that these first two episodes, there wasn't a whole lot to say in terms of plot development in the first two episodes. It was mostly about kind of character development, but also just beautiful scenery and costumes and that kind of a thing. So yeah, I do hope to be doing an individual one of these for each individual episode that is aired. So if you'd like to see how I got this look and using my bi-weekly makeup bag and hear a little bit about these two episodes of I Am the Night, please keep watching. But I've already moisturized. I'm going to go in with my Essence I Heart Color eyelid primer. So that's a lot of eyelid primer. I will say that both of the stories, the story of, three stories actually, the story of what happened to Fauna Hodel, the true story of what happened to Fauna Hodel, would be a story in and of itself. The true story of what happened to her being adopted and her being told that she was biracial when she really wasn't, and being raised in a Black family and all of those things. And, you know, where she came from. We're kind of excluding the detail though of where she came from, just the fact that she was this person who was adopted out under very strange circumstances, I think would make an amazing miniseries or movie all by itself. I'm going with my Veil Mineral Primer now just to let that set in a little bit. The George Hodel story by itself, separate from Elizabeth Short, would make kind of a full story, a full movie, a full miniseries. The Elizabeth Short part of it would make a whole separate kind of thing. And this fictionalized Jay Singletary, the journalist, that would also, I think, make a full miniseries or movie, that kind of a thing. I'm gonna go in with 207 with a kind of a fluffy brush just for my lids. So yeah, all of those things together, I think independently would make their own miniseries or their own movie, that kind of a thing. It's based on the Fauna Hodel book, which I'm now reading. I hadn't read it before. And as far as I can tell in the book, the nonfiction autobiography of Fauna Hodel, she didn't go to LA until the late 60s, early 70s. I don't think that she ever met her grandfather, Dr. Hodel, and I don't know that she ever went to the house. And she definitely didn't meet with this fictional journalist that we're learning a lot about, and I'm assuming that by the next episode, their worlds are going to be intersecting. Go in with a kind of crease brush, and I'll go in with 134, the light purple. So that's something. The other thing too is that historical fiction, which is what this is, because we're not just, she's using this, the book, autobiography of Fauna Hodel, as the basis, but it's being embellished. I mean, some of the things that we already know about are that when she came to LA is a different time than when she came to LA. Also, she always knew that she was adopted. The whole thing about the drama of her mother, her getting a notification at the hospital that she was working at that her mother had died, that didn't happen. So there's a lot of kind of drama happening here that didn't happen in real life. So I'm kind of at a problem is that I know a lot about George Hodel and about Elizabeth Short. If you were approaching this as someone who didn't know anything about it, I wonder if you'd enjoy it more or if it would be different, just a clean fluffy brush to kind of buff this a little bit. I wonder what it would be like, because in my head, I keep kind of fighting with myself where I'm thinking, wait a minute, this didn't happen, this couldn't be true, and I'm looking for truth when really I really should be, I think, probably looking for narrative and for being interested by what's happening in the story. Slightly smaller brush, and I'm going to go in with 140, that teal. Oh, also all the things that are done around race are really compelling, and that also could be a whole story all by itself. I do appreciate what they're doing with it, and I know that it was a big part of Fauna Hodell's life, but it wasn't a big part of George Hodell's life, and it certainly wasn't any part of Elizabeth Short's life. So as compelling as Fauna Hodell's story is, and I think it's incredibly compelling, and I'm enjoying reading the book, and she just was fascinating, and I can see why this story was compelling and why they wanted to make I'm going to go in with 133 also, same brush. Why Patty Jenkins wanted to make this into a miniseries, but it's just hard because there are so many things that we're looking at that are so compelling and that in and of themselves could be a movie or a miniseries. And I want to get to George Hodell and Elizabeth Short and kind of flashbacks and things like that. That's where my head is because I know about Elizabeth Short and I know a decent amount about George Hodell. One of the other things that we're hearing a little bit about, and I expect that we'll hear more about if we end up going back to the 40s, is about police corruption in Los Angeles specifically. And certainly that there's been police corruption in Los Angeles, from time to time and in other cities, but it was kind of notorious in the 30s and 40s. I think that was probably the era that it was the most notorious, maybe early 50s. And so the whole idea of, and they haven't really talked about it, but the molestation case, which I think is the thing that brought Jay Singletary down, trying to investigate a story that didn't want to be told, is something that happened during that era. And that's also a really interesting era in time and by itself could be its own miniseries, its own TV show. Gonna go in with the bomb Schwingliner. Oh, and also the house. It's amazing to be able to see the house. It's now owned by a couple. I don't know who owned it prior to that. And it's pretty amazing to see it. I have heard from some of the George Hodell documentaries and books that I've seen and read, there is one that he goes into the house with Phil Curtis, I think, and there are, secret rooms and that patio is just stunning. But the house itself is a character, I think. And so I am grateful to be able to see that. So those are kind of the things that I was thinking about when I was watching both the pilot and the phenomenon of interference, which is the second episode. So I think that I'm going to have to watch the rest of the series as though it's an interesting yarn being kind of knitted into a not entirely truthful scarf, I suppose. But yeah, I am definitely fighting with what I know to be true and where I want things to be going because I want to see how this story is going to unfold. I'm going with my Hourglass Vanish Foundation in Vanilla and with the brush. This works better with the brush than it does with other brushes and also with sponges. I don't know why, but it seems to blend better when I'm using the brush that was meant to be used with the foundation. So looking at Fauna/Pat, and again, this is true for both, following things kind of in both episodes. And I mentioned before too that the true story of her life would have been enough without bringing it back to her father being a suspect in the Elizabeth Short homicide. She apparently did know that she was adopted from an early age. Again, I'm reading the book. Don't know when she learned that, but it wasn't like it happened in the pilot where her mom was drunk and she stumbled across something, and then later when she goes into the hospital and kind of finds the record of her adoption. She went to LA a little bit later in her life too. I think in real life she'd already had at least one child before she went to LA. So it's a little bit further along in real life when she went to LA. The whole thing at the hospital with her getting the message that her mother had passed and kind of going home to find that her mother was alive, and that being the plot device that kind of gets her to go to LA because she has just had it and she wants to go find who her real family is. Oh, and then also the whole thing at the bus stop with George Hodell. I guess I should stop talking about the things that didn't actually happen because we've already accepted the fact that there's a lot happening here that's fictional. Oh, and that was the Tatcha. Anastasia Brow is in chocolate. The Bacchanal that we see when Pat/Fauna calls the house and the woman answers the phone seems consistent with what George Hodell has reported. So I would imagine that those kinds of things actually did happen. And again, the house itself is its own kind of character, which I love. I am really loving getting to see the house. And I don't know, I hope that we get more of the inside, and I hope that it's actually, I don't know how hard it is to film in a house like that, but I wonder if we'll be seeing the actual inside of the house, if they were able to film in the interior, or if they had to build sets. Getting a little bit of kind of bleeding going on there. So I'm gonna go in with some micellar water and a pointed cotton bud, and I'm going to bring this down as much as I can. Okay. Hope that we get more of the actual interior of the house. I'm assuming that we'll see a lot more, but I don't know how easy it is to film inside. Oh, and then I'm also wondering where all the money is coming from. I guess that it's just we can just suspend disbelief that she has money. The fact that she's able to go to LA on the bus. I guess she's earning money at the hospital. Maybe she saved money at the hospital, but taking a cab from the bus station to her family and all of those things cost money. But I will let that slide. It just was something that kind of bugged me when I was thinking about accuracy, but I don't think that we're necessarily totally shooting for accuracy here. NYX blush and taupe for my cheekbones. So then the J. Singletary character, who's not real, he does remind me a little bit of the Paul Avery character from Zodiac. And I know that Paul Avery had some problems with substance abuse and that kind of a thing, but I think that a lot of that was embellished, not made up, but embellished. And of course, this J. Singletary character is fictional entirely. Does seem like J. Singletary has been driven crazy by a case from the past where the Paul Avery character real person in Zodiac is being kind of driven crazy and into addiction because of a story that's happening now. But the suicide attempt was kind of heavy-handed. I don't know that that was necessary, but you know, whatever. I'm gonna go in with the blush from this Busy Art Theory palette. And yeah, he's saved by the fact that he's being kind of brought in to work on this Romeo killer case. I do appreciate what Chris Pine is doing with the character. I think it's really interesting. And the work that he's doing certainly seems to be a lot more salacious than it used to be, or than it wants to be. We do see a lot of, this is the ColourPop BFF mascara. It does seem like the work that he was doing before was actually real. And I'm imagining that the case not the case, but the story, the thing that broke him was the George and Tamar Hodel incest case, which happened, I think, in '49 during the corruption and during an era where there was a lot of corruption in LAPD. And I'm sure that we'll learn more about that in the next episode. I'm not sure, but I hope that we do learn more about kind of what was happening for him back then and how that kind of played out for him back then. But he's definitely working on things that are more salacious than maybe he wants to. But I do appreciate seeing these glimpses of maybe the journalist that he used to be. Hourglass Veil Powder. And yeah, so I'm curious to see where all of this goes. I'm gonna go in with the ColourPop Velvet Blur in Solo. Curious to see where all this is going. And I do appreciate, it's beautiful. I love the costumes, I love the scenery, I love the detail. And I can almost look past the plot holes because I'm enjoying watching it so much. Just a little hard because what I should want to see and how I'm kind of going to reframe it for the next, I think there are 8 episodes, for the next 6 episodes, is that I think what I want to see is whatever Patty Jenkins' vision is, and not necessarily be so tied to the truth. I want to be tied to the narrative, so I'm going to try to do that. Thank you so much for watching this. Let me know if you're watching this series and what your thoughts are, and if you know anything about the Elizabeth Short murder and about George Hodel and all that stuff, and if that's coloring the way that you're seeing this. Yeah, let me know. And thank you so much for watching. A lot to do in the world, a lot to do on YouTube, and it means a lot that you took some time to spend with me today. Take care, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.